Welcome back to the Red Truck Woodshop. Last fall, we replaced the post on my front porch to be a little bit more craftsman style. Now, we're going to add some railing to the stairs. I bought some 4x4s to make the posts. They're cedar 4x4s, a lot more rot resistant, but we're going to do a few things to make them even more rot resistant. So, if you want to see how I built the rail, stick around.
I started off by digging a hole to put some concrete in. I planned to put the post on top of the concrete, and at one point I ran into some concrete underneath the dirt here, about 6 inches down. So I'm trying to bust it out as best I can because I want the concrete I'm pouring new to go a little bit deeper.
Alright, well, been drilling in the concrete to find out where the edge is and come to the conclusion the edge is a lot further away than what I think. So I've started drilling these holes to make a sort of a circle, squarish type where I can bust out the middle. Somebody may ask, why are you going to all this bother when there's good concrete down there? And the short answer is I want to go deeper, and as I drill through this, it's only about 3 inches deep. I want this post base to go a lot further down in, so that's what I'm going for, a good solid base for this post. I might have to rethink my strategy. 20 holes, I think, 20 holes dug, drilled in this concrete, and it's not budging. I said, well, I'm doing another one on this side. Let's see what's on this side. I dug down and I got really nice flat looking concrete down there, just 6-8 inches deep. So I'm gonna have to think about this one. Alright, well, I've decided what I'm going to do here. You can see I've marked the center of the post, and I've decided to use the existing concrete that's there. It's a pretty good, thick, solid, nice, smooth slab that for whatever reason they put in. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to use this concrete bonding agent, so I'll pour fresh concrete up against the existing concrete, and that will make them stick together. I'm also going to add rebars, and I'm going to use this to secure the rebar in the holes that I drill for it. So this will hold the rebar into the existing concrete. This will glue the new concrete to the existing concrete. As for this hole here, and all 20 holes I've drilled, I've decided this is a pretty darn good solid piece of concrete. So I'm going to epoxy my rebars into 4 of these holes, and the rest of them I'm just going to fill with that epoxy stuff.
The reason I'm putting the rebar in these is so that I can tie the existing concrete to the new concrete and make them act as one solid piece. The manufacturer recommends that you clean out the holes of all dust. Air compressing is a perfectly acceptable way of doing that. So here I am cleaning out the holes before I put the epoxy in and the rebars in. Now as I'm inserting the bar into the hole, you see that I'm giving it a twist. That just helps ensure that you have product on all sides of the bar and that it's well mixed and no air bubbles.
Okay, well, I forgot to record making the forms and pouring the concrete, but here we are, finished product, sitting there curing. Gotta wait for it to cure for at least a day before I take the forms off. But then we'll take the forms off and start setting posts. All turned out pretty good.
So I'm putting tape on the bolts that are embedded in the concrete. I'm going to put some grout on top of this to dress it up, just a very thin layer of grout. Before I add the grout, you have to put on some more of that bonding agent to make the grout stick to the concrete that's already partially cured there. So here I am putting on the bonding agent, and then I'll be putting on some grout and smoothing it out. This is not a necessary step for the integrity of anything. This is just to make it look nice. So some people will refer to this as rubbing down the concrete, and that's all you do. You mix up some grout and you put it on there, rub it down. I know I'm using a rubber float, which probably is not the right tool for this, but it is what I have. So here I'm measuring to transfer the center of the post at the bottom of the stairs to the top of the stairs. And I'm pulling the string line, making sure it's parallel to the stairs themselves, and marking the holes for where I'm going to drill and epoxy in the 2 bolts at the top of the stairs for the top post. So I decided to start with a small pilot bit before I went to the larger bit. You can also notice here I'm not using the hammer option on the drill yet. Once again, I'm drilling through brick, and brick is very brittle. I'll switch to the hammer option as I get a little bit deeper in, but I wanted to keep the bit from wandering, keep it from cracking the brick on the surface. So that's why I'm not switching to drilling until now. And now it's on to making the posts themselves. I started by cutting the 4x4s to length. Here I am drilling a hole in the bottom for the 2 bolts that are in the concrete. I'm going to have the bolts stick up into the post, and you'll see later how that works with some angle iron brackets that I'm going to make. And now I'm drilling holes for the bolts to go through the angle iron brackets on the side. So bolts will hold the angle iron brackets to the concrete and then also to the post itself here. It'll become a little more obvious as we get further along in the assembly how this all fits together. At the beginning of the video, I mentioned that I'm going to take these cedar posts and make them a little bit more rot resistant. Here I am placing some masking tape on there. My intent is to spray some Flex Seal on the bottom of the post so that the bottom does not soak up any water. After the Flex Seal cured, I came back and I stained the posts, give them a nice pretty look, and also give them a little bit more resistance to water.
Okay, I got all the pieces for the side rails, the top and bottoms, cut and ready to stain. I decided to use some pocket holes here to attach things. Once again, I love pocket holes, so we're gonna get stain in here.
As I mentioned, the post is going to be fastened to the concrete with a piece of angle iron with some holes drilled in it. Cutting the angle iron to 3-inch lengths here, and then I'll be moving on to drilling the holes in it. I don't have exactly the proper equipment for drilling holes in metal, but my shopsmith does a pretty good job. It's not quite low enough RPM, and you are supposed to use cutting oil. I know, I'm using 3-in-1 oil. It's the only thing I have, but it did an okay job. After I cut things to length and got the holes drilled, I went ahead and buffed up the surface and added a coat of Flex Seal on the angle iron as well. So now you can see the holes that I drilled in the angle iron and how they fit onto the concrete and how the post will be fitting into the middle of it.
Some of you may be wondering why I'm using a carriage bolt for these. The reason I'm using a carriage bolt is because that's all they had. I plan on cutting the head off the carriage bolt and leaving the nut like I got it there. And I'll do a little protecting of the nut or the bolt after I cut it off so it doesn't rust away. But that is why I got a carriage bolt on this thing.
I also want to note, I took some time to plumb the posts and shim the angle irons so that everything would be nice and plumb. The piece of scrap that you see there is a spacer to represent the skirt that I'm going to be putting around the post to hide the bolts.
Got the top and bottom rails put in. What I'm gonna do next is, my balusters will go in between these like so. I got to cut these to length. But also what I'm going to do is I'm going to put little spacers in here to space out the balusters appropriately. So I've got to go cut those and stain those and get those in place. That's what we're doing.
So here I am cutting the little spacers. You notice they're being cut on an angle to match the angle of the stair. So the balusters will be nice and plumb between them. There won't be any space in between anything. Installing the spacer up there at the top, it has a snug fit, but I wanted to make sure that it stayed, so I put screws into them to keep them in place and from falling. And here I am installing the skirt piece to hide the bolts. I actually made a dado in the two pieces for them to fit around the bolt heads themselves, so it looks like there's no bolts at all. Dresses it up a little bit.